Okay, good morning, everyone. I'll just give it a few seconds to see if some more people turn up. Yep, I can see people getting added in. Great. Okay, I'll make a start. So good morning, everyone, and welcome. My name is Mary Miskin, and I am Operations Director at Charlesworth Author Services. And I'm also the chair of the ISMTE European Conference Committee, one of the 3 committees that has planned the ISMTE Global event. So we're delighted to welcome you to this session this morning, which is hosted by our sister organisation, EASE, the European Association of Science Editor. So I'll soon pass over to the actual moderator of this event, Eva Grabarek-Andonovsky from the University of Zagreb, Faculty of Food Technology and Biotechnology. But first, I'll just go through a couple of quick housekeeping reminders before we can pass fully to our colleagues at EASE. So on the AirMeet platform, and apologies to everyone who has heard this at the start of every session already so far this week. But on the AirMeet platform, everyone other than the panelists have been muted. However, you do have the opportunity to submit your questions to today's speakers at any time during the presentations and talk. So you can type your questions into the Q&A function on the right-hand side. You can also indicate if there's a specific panelist your question is for by using an @ sign ahead of their name. You can also upvote questions from other members of the audience if there's something particularly you'd like us to focus on, and Eva will be able to choose those questions first. You can also chat with other members of the audience using the chat function, or if you have some general comments to say on what the speakers are talking about, again, do feel to interact via chat and we can see what your thoughts and opinions are. You can also share impressions via the reactions feature at the bottom of your screen. At the end of the session, we will be available in the lounge for networking if you have further comments or points for discussion. So I think that's covered all of the housekeeping, and I'll be able to pass over to Eva. Eva, welcome. We're very much looking forward to your session.
Well, thank you very much, Mary, and thank you for inviting us to organize this session on harnessing leadership and accountability for a sustainable publishing industry. So good morning from nice and sunny Zagreb, Croatia, after yesterday's storm, which once again emphasized the fact that the climate is changing, and we all should be aware of it and be responsible and take all measures we can to avoid such conditions. So I will be. I am. As Mary told you, I'm coming from Faculty of Food Technology and Biotechnology, University of Zagreb. I'm editor of Food Technology and Biotechnology Journal. I am EASE Vice President and Environment and Sustainability Committee Chair. So I would like first to say just a couple of words about EASE. It's an association of over 620 members coming from the roles of editors, publishing professionals. We are both as an organization and as journal signatories of UN SDG Publishers Compact. We have established our Environment and Sustainability Committee in spring 2021, published EASE Manifesto and presented it at the 15th EASE conference in 2021, which was dedicated to promoting sustainability in scholarly publishing. We have our virtual forest with over 930 planted trees all over the world. And we have endorsed UK Health Alliance on Climate Change editorial, which you will be you will heard a lot afterwards. And together with HESI, we have conducted Publishers Compact Survey to determine how the signatories of UN SDG Publishers Compact are reaching sustainable development goals. And In September this year, after this event, which is one important for us to participate at this global event, there is also one additional event in Croatia at the University of Zadar from 13 to 15 September. At the public conference, we will have our session on environment and sustainability in publishing. So I'm very glad to welcome our three eminent speakers today. First will be Rachel Martin from Elsevier. She's a Global Director of Sustainability, Chair of STM Social Responsibility Committee and UK Book Industry Communications Green Supply Chain. So hello, Rachel. Nice to see you again. Then the next speaker is Hasib Irfanullah. He is from our East Council and my Environment and Sustainability Committee Vice Chair. He is an independent consultant working in environment, climate change and research system, associate editor of Learn Publishing and board member of Scholarly Kitchen. So nice to have you, Hasib. You're certainly an expert at these topics. And Alistair, last but not least, Alistair Brown from the United Kingdom. He is also an Environment and Sustainability Committee member, editor-in-chief of Lancet Planetary Health, and he was previously working at UK Climate Impacts Program at Oxford University. So after their presentations, we will later have a discussion and opportunity to answer your questions. So please use Q&A and write with whichever question you have on mind. And if you want to address it to a certain participant, then write sign @ and the participant's names. So Rachel, the floor is yours.
Thanks very much. So I think I was going to start, and I can certainly talk from the publisher's perspective. And I'm the chair of the Social Responsibility Committee at the STM Association. The STM Association is the leading association for academic publishers. And we have a new committee called Social Responsibility. And I think that definitely indicates how important these issues of sustainability are, how it's working within our sector, and how academic publishers really want to come together and collaborate around this. I think to give you an introduction, I was part of the team that launched the SDG Publishers Compact back in 2020. The SDG Publishers Compact, for those who might not be familiar, was a list of 10 concrete actions that were launched by the International Publishers Association and the United Nations publications team. And it was done during Frankfurt Book Fair. And it was designed for any publishing organization. So that could be an indie publisher based out in Brooklyn to an academic publisher, the likes of Elsevier or Springer Nature or Taylor & Francis, all of which were incredibly supportive and were the first to sign up. Alongside EASE and STM, they also signed up as trade organizations. And I think one of the reasons why academic publishers and organizations such as EASE and STM and ALPS all signed up very quickly was because we recognize just merely by existing and what we do in our day-to-day lives is around sustainability and trying to advance that objective. And what's interesting about the SDG Publishers Compact is that there's two distinct areas of where we think we can actually make a difference. The first is obviously to be sustainable in our own operational policies. So we should have diverse organizations, we should be addressing our carbon footprints, and we should be thinking about what we're doing in terms of sustainability on a day-to-day basis. The second one, which is really, really, if not more important, is to be a catalyst of change, to be able to embody what we need to in order to accelerate the SDG agenda. And I think the SDG agenda is a great North Star for many organizations. You will hear societal responsibility, you'll hear sustainability, you'll hear ESG, you'll hear a lot of different jumbles of alphabets. But fundamentally, at the crux of all of them, it's about accounting for and measuring our organization's impact on society and making sure that we live up to the values that we have as organizations. And I think that is embodied by the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. Those 17 very broad aspirational goals have 169 underlying targets underneath them. Climate action is definitely one of them. And those actions kind of need to be translated. What does it mean for academic publishers? What does it mean if you're an organization and you're signing up to these commitments? And how do we actually deliver on those? And as I've mentioned, having surveys of progress and being able to report and to be transparent is definitely part of it. And so I'm kind of delighted that we're just about to launch a roadmap for the STM members. And this really is a great first step. So what we've done is outlined 5 areas where we think publishers could start with, and we're going to have 3 levels. So we're just about to launch level 1 because we want not just the bigger publishers, but we want everybody to be inspired and to kind of deconstruct some of the concerns you might have about signing up to an SDG Publishers Compact and using that as a North Star within your organizations. And so the roadmap, like I said, it's going to have 3 levels. So level 1 is that introduction. And we go through things like, how do you start the conversation in your organization? So we've got an example slide deck that you could present to your leadership team. We go through things like, what does it mean? Maybe you need to go through and audit your policies. What are you doing on accessibility for people with visual impairment? What are you doing on diversity and inclusion? And being able to pull those together. And we're going to link out to examples of other publishers for inspiration, but it hopefully will get everybody to a point where we're very comfortable to sign up and make these commitments, knowing that we could go back into our organizations. And like I said, on those 2 very distinct points, our organizational kind of policies and on the editorial side, and be able to start progressing. And then, organizations such as STM and EASE and others can come and help create the resources and to really try and progress it. And I think having a dedicated committee at STM is a really great indication of the future about how serious, the leadership, the big publishers, the little publishers are taking sustainability now. And so we're kind of delighted that we're going to kick this off. Of course, we have to ramp up the effort. We have to kind of get everybody onto the same speed. But this is a great, excellent step. And, we'll be really excited to go live with the roadmap. I'm thinking it's either today or tomorrow. So stay posted.
Fingers crossed. So yes. I must apologize because when I see ladies, I first give them the word. So I should have started with Hasi because he will talk more about the global picture and where we stand at this point. But it will also intertwine with those things and points which Rachel pointed out, what we can do as publishers and editors. So Hasi, please tell us a little bit more where we are at this point, what is happening on our planet, because yesterday's storm in Zagreb was really an alarm for us. And what can we do as publishers, as editors, as communication specialists to prevent this from happening? Please, Hasib.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Eva. When we talk about leadership and accountability, let me start off with how do I see it. Rachel has given a fantastic example what she as an individual and IP and UN as an organization, as well as STM as an organization, have been doing over the last 3 years or so. But I see leadership is not only about doing something pioneering or something new, it is also keep the track we have followed, keeping it open, so that other can follow us as well, follow the path. So to me, we cannot be leader unless we have followers. It doesn't make any sense. On the other hand, when we talk about accountability, definitely it is about showing how honest we are, how responsible we are in terms of our duty or our responsibility or our commitment. And these commitments are not only towards our stakeholder or clients, to our peers as well as those who actually look up to us as leaders. So to me, leadership and accountability actually goes hand in hand. Since today we are talking about sustainable development, sustainability, SDG, and definitely these issues can be taken forward, as Rachel rightly mentioned, at organization level, as well as actors like editors. I believe most of us who are listening to these or the recording will be from that arena. And definitely SDG Publishers Compact, which is a fantastic thing because it was launched back in 2020 October at Frankfurt Book Fair. And if I was just counting the other day, and we reached almost 300 publishers and publishing association. Of course, most of them are from almost 150 from Europe, but they are all over the place. But one thing in terms of accountability, I would like to highlight that. Those of you who attended the IPS session last year at the book fair, Frankfurt Book Fair, you might have heard from UN representatives who were there. They were talking about a survey that how the signatories are doing in terms of taking up the 10 action points that Rachel briefly mentioned. But for some reason, those haven't been made public. But that is very important because one of the very strong points that Rachel also mentioned, that accountability in terms of accounting or measuring providing the feedback or tracking our progress. So I hope that since in 3 months' time we will be having our Frankfurt Book Fair 2023, we will be seeing some fantastic numbers, or even maybe not progress, some challenges. That is also good to ensure accountability. My second point is, as Rachel mentioned, the roadmap which is developed, the first level will be disclosed quite soon. But there is a fantastic, there's an extreme need of having those kind of tools so that editors, organizations, publishers, they can take actions. So my second point is, what are the tools available? One of the most comprehensive repository, if I may call it, SDG-related, publishing-related repository was established by IPA once again back in 2021. And last November, I was just looking into that dashboard. What are the tools or items or guidelines they have put together? And it was fantastic. Obviously, climate change and biodiversity, those were quite big. And I followed them up 2 days back, and I have seen they didn't stop there. They have continued putting tools in, which is amazing, isn't it? And it is not only that organizations have to do. My other example is from HESI that actually Eva mentioned in her opening remark. Higher Education Sustainability Initiative, they have got as SDG Compact Fellows. I believe Rachel is one of them, 22 members are there. And with ease, they have taken a fantastic survey last year. I'm sure it will be out, the results, very soon, which will once again show us how we are doing in implementing SDG Publishers Compact. You can visit their website. This is amazing. There are so many action points available for the stakeholders like academic publisher, editors, researchers, reviewers. The final point that I want to make very quickly, without reporting back on a regular basis, we may claim our leadership, but we cannot say that we are accountable to our stakeholders, our clients, our peers. We do see Emerald's sustainability report. We do see Oxford responsibility publishing report. We do see Wiley's ESG and Wiley impact update, or Springer Nature's sustainability business report in 2021, I believe the last one. But those shouldn't be confined to the big publishers. We all need to do that. Whenever we are publishing our annual reports, we can have a section on that. There is not necessarily that we will be having an exclusive sustainability report, because it can be quite expensive or quite time consuming as well. So as you have heard that in September, many things will be happening. One thing will be happening is Global Goals Week from 15th to 20th September. It is a UN-led event. I was just wondering, we, the publishers and editors, what we are going to do in September when the world will be celebrating or appreciating SDGs progress. Can we do something together? Thank you very much.
Well, thanks, Hasib. These were certainly very interesting points. I especially like the point that we all need to be accountable and to raise the awareness and report back to our institutions or publishers or governments. So by sharing our progress initiatives and not only that, but goals also, what do we want to achieve, how we plan to achieve that. This is certainly something which will level up our skills also as publishing professionals. Regarding initiatives which you can do at perhaps a smaller level, like for example, I'm coming from academia, so my university or my faculty is actually a publisher, so we have limited resources. Alistair will inform us about initiatives which ISMTE has undertaken, and ISMTE Manifesto, which is a set of I will say really nice and simple suggestions how you can join as a journal editor, or how your journal can join the initiative and make an impact. Please, Alistair, take us into it.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Before I go into the compact, which I'm mostly going to focus on, I just want to zoom out and look at the whole kind of sustainability goal, which I always like to do when we're talking about sustainability, because it's quite a complicated thing to visualize. And the thing that I always like to use for this is Kate Raworth's donut diagram. And the donut is the big green donut in the middle of the screen, which defines a safe and just space for humanity. And the outer ring of the donut is defined by various ecological ceilings. And then the inner ring of the donut is defined by the resources required for the basic foundations for life, so energy, water, health, education, etc. And so we want to operate within this safe and just space for society. And the problem that we have is that when we look at how we're doing, we're already exceeding a whole number of planetary boundaries, and there's many people around the world who aren't being provided their basic social foundation. So this is our starting point, is that we're quite far off course. And I think it's always quite important to recognize that it's not as if we just need to keep doing what we're doing sustainably, like into the future. We need to do something different. We need to move into this different space. And when you look at a diagram like that, you might feel something like I feel, which is a certain amount of anxiety. It's sort of like, oh my God, how are we so far from where we need to be? What can we do about it? Now, of course, this is a huge collective action problem, but nevertheless, one of the ways that we can move towards feeling less anxious about these kinds of things is to take some action. And that's really the idea of the ISMTE Manifesto. It was designed to try and support ISMTE members to engage directly with sustainability. And it's designed to offer quite a simple starting point and set of ideas and principles to make some progress. And they fall broadly into two categories: issues about how do we think about our content in terms of the Sustainable Development Goals, and then how do we think about our operations. Now, my background is, I'm a manuscript editor, and so content is kind of my expertise, if you like. So I'm going to talk a little more about that, but then I'll talk about operations next. So as editors, most of us have the capacity within our daily work to raise the profile of sustainability and sustainability challenges in all areas of work and across all specialisms. And I think that's really worth emphasizing across different specialisms, because I work on a journal which is defined essentially as a sustainability orientated journal. So my readers are already engaged in these topics much of the time. But many specialist editors work in areas where they may not consider sustainability to be in their wheelhouse, maybe engineering, or maybe like a particular area of chemistry or material science or something. And I would argue actually bringing sustainability issues directly to that audience who aren't already engaged is hugely important. So there's a real potential for people who have specialisms who don't normally engage in sustainability to really bring that directly to their audience. The other thing which I think we need to do is to recognize and emphasize the urgency of the challenge, which is one of the reasons why I showed those diagrams at the beginning. This, as I was emphasizing before, this isn't just minor tweaks. We can start with minor tweaks, that's important, but we need some really big changes. And if people don't understand that at the fundamental level, then they're not going to seek to achieve that at the organizational level. Another thing which I think is really important is to focus on solutions, not just problems. So a lot of the science of climate change, for example, is about describing, how climate change might affect infectious diseases, for example, which is great, but it's problem orientated. So that's necessary, but not sufficient. If we want to solve these problems, we need to also have a solution focus. So as editors, this is another thing that we can bring into our journals. And the final point I want to emphasize is around intersectionality. So, cross-sectoral working. So sustainability requires us to think in a more joined up way than we're used to doing. Often things like air pollution intersect with socioeconomic marginalization to affect certain populations. And if we want to address these challenges, we need to do it in a joined up way. And so that means that our content, we need to strive to make our content more joined up and more intersectional. Okay, so that's our kind of preaching component, if you like, the what we can say. But then, obviously, to be credible as agents of change, we also need to act. We need to be doing some of the actions that we're telling other people to do, essentially. So in the ISMTE Manifesto, it's designed for those people who are only just starting out on this journey, really, who are just, and maybe have a small organization and they're looking to engage in reducing their environmental footprint. And so I've just listed the kind of headline areas where it's quite easy to make to reduce environmental footprints. And then under each of these, there's a more detailed explanation. We're quite lucky in a sense in our industry. We're not working in heavy steel manufacture or something which requires us to really change our operating principles. It's relatively easy for us to take steps to reduce our environmental footprint. So the first thing that we recommend in the manifesto is to establish an environmental policy so that you've actually got an explicit aim. The publishing industry is obviously already in a kind of a digital transition, but the digital transition is certainly facilitating a greener model. And so that's something that we can perhaps accelerate in certain areas. Those people who do have print distribution, they can minimize waste. They can look at having recycled or no packaging. There are various things to do to improve the distribution efficiency. For many of us, office management, even if it's home office management, is a key area where we can use more efficient appliances or more efficient lighting, or make sure that we're sourcing our energy from renewable sources. Food and drinks, another really key area, is somewhere where you can actually potentially improve the health of your employees and also reduce the environmental footprint. Employee management and travel. So obviously with the pandemic, many of us have been traveling much less and realized that maybe we don't need to travel so much. But that can be facilitated by video conferencing facilities, by shower and changing room facilities for people to cycle into work, these kind of things. And then finally, building management. Obviously, building efficiency and insulation is key. And perhaps if you're renting an office space and it's not an efficient space, you could consider moving. That sends a strong signal to building providers that they need to be up in their game in this area. So anyway, that's a whistle-stop tour of both the kind of content areas that we can focus on and some of the practical areas that people can focus on to try and become really useful advocates and, I guess, practical practitioners of a more sustainable publishing industry. And I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Alistair. I just wanted to point out that you also coordinated the UK Health Alliance for Climate Change joint editorial. So if you can say a little bit about it, it will be interesting to see how the journals, which were health-related journals, but perhaps it could be extended to other journals as well. But what initiatives they undertaken in front of COP? So if you can share a few thoughts about it.
I didn't organise it, but we were involved.
You were involved, yes.
Sure, yeah. I don't want to take credit for someone else's efforts, but I mean, so I think that's quite a nice example, perhaps, of what I was talking about trying to move sustainability into the mainstream agenda of research areas where they maybe don't consider it to be their wheelhouse. So the idea was to essentially have as many publishers and journals as possible co-publish an editorial which advocated for the need for sustainability. And it seems to it certainly makes a big impact within a field, and it shows that many people, sometimes I think it's hard to know what's already happening, and if there's a degree to which, if you know that people are already on board, if they're already making the case, then it kind of it builds momentum. So I think initiatives like that certainly have a place, and it would be really interesting to see similar initiatives across other specialty areas where groups of highly respected academics or journals or institutions group together to publish essentially a kind of a mission statement saying that this should be a priority for us. I think that's potentially really powerful. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. And this was also related to COVID, which was something also spread more by climate changing all over the world. And as you can see, you cannot avoid the change. So it will be very important to raise the awareness. And in that aspect, Hasib, you can tell us a bit about our initiative from our Environment and Sustainability Committee for introducing Environment Sustainability Week. This will be something which will certainly raise more awareness, don't you think?
Yeah, thanks, Eva. I was just listening to Alistair's points. Definitely having that week or those events is very, very important for whatever we do. But one thing is important, not only what we discuss, but the follow-up, which I am quite fond of, is because of that follow-up thing. We didn't stop back in 2021 just making sustainability as our annual conference's main theme. We went on. We declared the manifesto, Environmental Sustainability Manifesto. We joined hand with other peers, and we started following up what is happening with SDG Publishers Compact as well, by working with HSI. So it shows that continuation. It is not only what we declare or form a committee. So I believe that the session that we will be having in that week and the events that will show not only how can we start, but also how can we continue. That is the most important part. Because that is often missing, sorry to say. I know there are so many different reasons for that. As Rachel mentioned, you need to convince your superiors. Sometimes those who attend, they don't have the authority to do something. But I think as an environmentalist by profession, I believe that we need to present, if I use the other softer P, present the issues so that we don't only get alarmed, but also be responsible and taking action. And I'm sure as we are celebrating Environmental Week, that Environmental Sustainability Week event, that will be a fantastic opportunity to do that. Thank you. Thank you, Eva.
Yes, that will be something which will certainly raise a lot of attraction also. And regarding our ISHESI UN SDG Publishers Compact survey, as we are analyzing the results, and I hope that soon the results will be published, it seems that most of the people are facing the lack of awareness and the lack of, I don't know how to put it, to push those at higher levels, like institutional leaders, to make more space for managing journal, accountable and sustainable journals. So I think a lot of it can be covered by the toolkits which, Rachel, you are working on. And I'm sure that if you can just say to our participants, what can they expect from there, and which resources will be available, and how can they use them? This will be certainly of most importance for them.
Yeah, certainly. And also maybe to comment on Haseeb and Alistair's comments to this point. I think what we often get is the idea of you read it, or you're experiencing something in the environment, or, you've had the storm in Croatia. In Amsterdam, we had a massive storm 2 weeks ago. We've got record-breaking heat in Southern Europe at this point in time, unheard of. It's been the hottest, month. And I think it can be really hard. But there is this ability that we have to break, and Alistair said it really eloquently, the idea that we keep looking at the past and thinking, oh, it was so great. I remember when I flew here, and I remember when I did this. And we have these rose-colored glasses as to, oh, that was such a great time. It was totally unsustainable. And I think that recognition, and the recognition that you have to change, is really hard. The Sustainable Development Goals is something that I think the UN have said about 74% of adults worldwide have heard of or have been exposed to the SDGs, as they're called, or global goals. But actually, in my conversations, it depends where you're located. So if you're located in North America, I don't know how many North Americans are joining in this session, I often get SDGs. What are SDGs? Oh, that's a UN agenda. No, that's nothing for us. If I'm in Europe, I sometimes get SDGs. It's part of the Horizon Europe kind of program. Asia, Japan, for example, they've got an amazing integration of SDGs into their facilities. So it's like every level. It has to happen at a government level. It has to happen in the policy level. It has to then trickle down to the institution. And then it's sort of, us as part of that research ecosystem being able to embrace that as well. And I think it's every kind of direction. And the roadmap is for us to kind of think about, how do we translate some of those really big concepts into really bite-sized things that you could chew off? And there's supposed to be recommendations. So like I said, if you're going to start with trying to sign up to the SDG Publishers Compact, you need to get, senior level buy-in. You need to go to your leaders. What are you going to present? You're going to have to explain what the SDGs are. You're going to have to explain what they mean for publishing. You might have to explain exactly what Haseeb has done here, set that scene for that international. What's everyone doing? And I think there's elements here of setting out what has been done. And so level 1 has been great. We had the HESI SDG Publisher Compact Fellows. They've got some top tips. So we've included some of those points. We've had the group that was convened by STM. So that included our STM members who said, hey, we've done this, or I can put this together, or I could do that. So a pooling of resources here. And I think that's going to be incredibly handy. And so what you can expect is that kind of 0 to 100, get you to the point where you could sign up, but then be aware, maybe you want your editors to join your committee for environment. Maybe you want them to join the HESI SDG Publisher Compact Fellows, or these organizations, or, the things that are being set up on an STM basis, to get involved, get plugged in. Because once you know there's a problem, you have to also be able to sort of take action about this and get plugged into what's happening here. And I think those is what the level 1's really thinking about. I think the other element that we haven't really kind of touched on is the minimum standards, or the indicators. So I'm a big believer in data-driven action, because once you measure something, or we come up with some indicators about what does success look like, we suddenly can move the needle. And I think that's a conversation we can talk about. Sustainability is incredibly broad. In the broader sense, this includes things for a publisher perspective. Accessibility. How accessible are your articles? How accessible are they to people with visual impairments? How's your digital platform doing? And what does that mean for academic publishing? It's very different than fiction or education or children's publishing. So kind of getting ourselves in order to figure out what those accountability measures are going to be. Because as much as I love a great, sustainability report, it is a sustainability report. Very few of us, unless you're in this area, will sit down with a cup of coffee and a cookie and go through a 50-page report. It's great for transparency, but it's not great in terms of, being able to think about those collective actions. And so I, agree with Alistair and Hasib that most of this is going to come when we collaborate and kind of say, okay, let's pick off this problem. Let's pick off that problem. Let's think about what we need to reimagine here. And the support that we're building here through things like the roadmap, the SDG Publishers Compact, and the Environmental Manifesto will help accelerate some of that progress. So I think, the level 1 will probably give us the basis to sort of think about the elements that we could be considering, but hopefully it inspires enough people to come in and get active and kind of dedicate some time and resources to developing some industry solutions, because this is something that nobody does alone. I mean, as much as your fancy report might look beautiful and artistically designed, and it could include videos and all sorts of amazing stuff, it doesn't mean anything. If I think about gender equality, we're not going to achieve it in not in my lifetime and not in my daughter's lifetime, and it's just not acceptable. And what could we do to move that needle there? And so I think this is about getting plugged in and actually working together.
Yes, thanks. It's a great point, because when we established our Croatian Association for Scholarly Communication in 2019, with the emphasis to, be able to promote things which are important for journal editors in Croatia, because we are mainly publishing in Diamond Open Access and by smaller academic institutions or institutes. So that was a big issue. First, of course, the financial sustainability, that's the important thing. But also, as we are part of European Union, we have to progress also in our environmental sustainability, not only financial sustainability. So we are leading a lot of conversation with our Ministry of Science and Education and trying to persuade them to change their criteria for journal supporting or financing, and to be more, to go more digital, to get away from those printing issues, a lot of copies not needed for anyone, etc. So at this time when you can see all the resources online, you can cut some costs also, so be financially, accountable, and also have a great impact on the environment by implementing these small, easy steps, which was presented in the ISMTE Manifesto as well. So that's the important thing. Also, at the level of our journal, we have introduced the option for authors to choose to which SDGs they want to dedicate their topic of their manuscript. And also we are promoting it at a website with the green light from the UN SDG Publisher Compact Fellows, and also on our social network platforms, which is also one way we could, boost it up a little bit. I will now switch to, I see a lot of comments and questions, and thank you, Hasib, for sharing in the chat the links to the ISMTE Manifesto, IPA SDG dashboard, and HESI top action tips. And it's interesting to see the question which Mary Mishkin has asked. Do you have advice for ISMTE leadership in terms of supporting their members with similar initiatives? I think since this is ISMTE Global Event, I think most of them are very interested to hear. What advice can you give them? Anyone? Perhaps Rachel, you can start, because you have a large group of people whom you are giving advices to.
No, so I think my advice is, one, it has to be prioritized. It has to be embedded in the organization. So if there's not a dedicated committee, establish a dedicated committee. If there's not a group or a forum where we're pulling things together, I think that that's important. Even if it's just a place where people get together and to talk, it is important in terms of awareness, because you have to understand that there is an issue that we need to kind of, think about. The other thing I would, in terms of advice, is there are so many different groups now. So the C4 DISC, for example, is coming out of the SSP. We've got the Joint Commitment, which is about diversity and inclusion. And you can't boil an ocean. So definitely think about what you want to focus on. So, you know, ease with the Environmental Manifesto, it's very clear that's environment. And yes, it's going to touch on elements of social or diversity if you're thinking about women and climate, or, you know, making sure that you've got representations from different, disciplines. If you're in the energy portfolio, for example, all of that's really important. But I think you have to be able to kind of prioritize what you want to look at. Bigger organizations will be able to do a lot more. But if you're a smaller organization or a committee, you have to pick your battles and pick what you're good at. If you're in, health, it could be good health and well-being, and that could be your area, and that's okay. And you'll touch on things like, as Alistair mentioned, the Health and Climate Manifesto shared editorial that went out. Those are things that you can get involved in. But I think, getting involved in the committees, either established or establishing your own, is really key, because you can plug into what's happening more broadly and where can you align and amplify. And that's basically what we want to do. A lot of this, at least from my perspective, a lot of the sustainability work, they don't have dedicated teams. They're not, a finance department with, 50 people. These are, finance, these are sustainability directors, they're chairs. These are part of additional work on everything, both for D&I and for climate. And I think we have to recognize that it's better to pool our resources together than to try and force something in there, because then we'll be able to accelerate it. If we're waiting until resources come, that could be quite some time.
Yeah, that's true. I'm also seeing that Mary is asking question, how can an individual become a member of SDG Publishers Compact Fellows? Perhaps whether they can elect a fellow, or do you have some... Also, we can expand it and to the question, how can you join UN SDG Publishers Compact Initiative for start? If you can answer that thing. Thanks.
Super easy. You can sign up online, but look at the 10 commitments. You can sign up, and then you have time to obviously go and fulfill those before you would fill out an annual sort of survey. So it's a voluntary set. So it's nothing that is, mandated or anything like that. But it's a first way for you to prioritize and also to communicate it. Once you've signed the SDG Publishers Compact, that's something that you can put on your website. It is part of the commitment, is to tell your staff, your customers, your authors that you are a member of this. And increasingly, we see the book fair, so not quite so relevant for academic publishing, but, in Frankfurt Book Fair, it is still a business fair. They sell rights. And so what they're doing is also making sure that you can say, hey, I'm a signatory to the SDG Publishers Compact. And so that's being integrated now in how we communicate our commitments and things like that. So that's quite easy. If you want to join the HESI SDG Publishers Compact, drop me a line. We're very open to new members. Drop us a line. You normally get invited to attend a couple of their sessions. They meet every week, which is a big commitment. But yeah, you're more than welcome to come along. So yeah, this space is incredibly inclusive. So definitely get involved.
Yes, I can say from the point of someone who is collaborating with you that is true, completely true. So, Alistair, what are you doing in Lancet Public Health in respect to this, which we are talking about, the initiatives which you can do at the journal or publisher level?
So, in terms of, the thing that I've got most control over as an editor is content. Right. So, and I think when the earlier also addresses the earlier question, which is, how do we get started? For most people, it's probably content, right? Is that's directly within your control. And obviously that you will have journal remit and mandates, etc. But immediately editors can decide that we need to cover more of this topic. We need to get this to our audience. We need to put more emphasis on this topic. And it also, to some extent, puts pressure to do the more practical things if you're publishing the thought leadership, if you like. So, arguably one of the reasons why publishers are now starting to act is because we're publishing all the content, which is hard for us to not act in accordance with, right? So sometimes sometimes you have to put it has to start with ideas before it becomes action. Now the action has to follow, but it's important to have the ideas out there. So for me, it's mostly about there's lots of ways. I mean, it's very complicated issues, sustainability, and we've touched on some of them around, there's low-hanging fruit. So you want to encourage people to get started, but low-hanging fruit still leaves most of the fruit on the tree. So you can't only do low-hanging fruit, right? You have to start doing the more difficult things at some point. So we have to find ways to encourage people to get started, but realize that getting started isn't finishing. You have to find ways to get to engage people in every step of that process. Some of that, the actions that you can do as individuals, are things that we can encourage people to do, like on this call. But there's also a need to lobby to change industry practices, or to even change wider frameworks and value systems which we're operating within, right? So for me, it's like a lot of our job is to essentially challenge people to understand that we're not currently operating in alignment with any kind of respect for the environment, essentially, and to just constantly bring that message forward in practical ways so people understand in any given context that we're publishing on how that's having impacts on the environment, for example, which is having knock-on impacts on people, or how we could change something which would be reducing that impact. So yeah, for me, because of the nature of my day job, it's mostly about content and about how we focus content. And for most editors, your job is to worry about that, right, and to make those choices. So that's something that you can do immediately. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Alistair. Really good advices. I would like to ask you, Hasi, because I have a question. What resources these members find most useful or helpful? So you can say from your point of view, because you're also in EASE member, not only council member, but also member, and you're very active at the Scholarly Kitchen. I read recently you also wrote an article about climate change in Bangladesh, so you can reflect on that also. So what resources are you finding most helpful, and what action points that you undertaken as a well, I can say among other things, as a climate activist?
Thank you. I would like to just, before answering your question, I would like to touch upon what Alistair actually mentioned, that what can we do? I think he has rightly mentioned about what editors can do, but here we are not only editors, but we are also representing organizations, associations, societies. I think it doesn't matter where we are based in. It is important, and it is also part of having broader sustainability or reaching towards sustainable development or SDGs, which is bringing others in. Yes, we are talking about, we are restructuring our editorial board. We are structuring our review policy to make it inclusive. We are measuring whether the authors or papers we are publishing, they are representing the geography or not. It is not only just we are talking about inclusive accessibility or diversity. No. We are actually contributing to SDGs. 5, 10, there are so many numbers there. So we have to realize that we need to collaborate with regional partners and stakeholders, not only the members who are based in the global north, if I use the term. So having the capacity or having the knowledge of who are there, we have to go beyond our comfort zone or our usual arena to work in. That is the point I want to make, and I would urge you all who are listening that let us find out our peers, our friends who are working in the same discipline or in the same arena. And let us collaborate. There are a few around. Regarding climate change or environmental degradation, yes, lots have been said. We have to start, or you have to, as Rachel very nicely mentioned or explained that these are sometimes we feel like big concepts, so we have to explain them. That is sometimes missing. And ease with this, manifesto, as Alistair showed the slide, very simple things, what you can do. And indeed, digitalization actually reduce the pressure on certain natural resources, like transportation. We don't need to send thousands of copies, hard copies, to different libraries around the world. But whether the energy that we are using to publish our digital version is renewable energy or not? This is one of the very simple questions, and it is everywhere, in all the tools you go for or you look into. We are trying our best to engage our members. We just had last month our annual conference and meeting, and we have these kind of discussions, and we have to work with the peers and other, because you have seen that quite a few names are coming up again and again, isn't it? But it doesn't mean that the circle is very small. That's why we are repeating same names again and again. There are so many others as well in the background. So once we join in, for example, ISMTE, definitely they have to join in if they want to, the compact. I understand they are not part of that compact yet, Publishers Compact. So there are so many things we can do, isn't it, to express our commitment. Yeah, that's all from me. Thank you for now.
Yes, thanks, Hasib. And it's exactly an excellent point. We are now gathered at this ISMTE Global Event, and we are interested in how can we level up our skills and how we can join the initiative. And that's the first step. So you all participators in this session actually took your first step. So the next would be just to read all the resources which are available. I am sharing some useful information from ISMTE. You can see where you can join the discussion forum, where you can find resources and recordings and upcoming events. I will just like to, of course, invite you to stay after we concluded this session. You can join us at our networking later, so we can discuss it further. And the next session after this one will be best practices for peer review training perspectives that elevate quality and impact of peer reviewing, which is also an important issue for journal editors. And one of the presenters there will be our Vice President Bahar Mehmani. So I would like to thank all the participants and invite them to please take a chance to explore those links which Hasib shared, and to see how your journal or your institution can join when UN SDG publishes Compact, and how you can try to with the simple few tweakings, as Alistair said, it's not enough, but it's a start. Join the initiative to reach sustainable development goals. And I would like to thank you, Rachel, Hasib, and Alistair, very much for sharing your thoughts. It was very interesting for me in particular, because I'm a dedicated officer at my journal, and together with Hasib running Environment Sustainability Committee. So this was a very, very good opportunity for me to learn as well. So thank you all very much.
Thank you all. Take care. Bye for now.
Thank you.
And I would like to ask Mary Mishkin if you can just point us to the networking site, because I'm not seeing. I will stop sharing my screen. I'm not seeing the link to join the discussion.
Once this session closes, you'll see there's a
Okay.
link in the browser to the lounge, and there are tables there where you can choose a table and speak to other people at the table.
So thanks, and I would like to invite all the participants to join us if they can. Grab some glass of water or sandwich and join us at the table. And thank you, Mary, very much for being our host.
Thank you.
For being our host.
Great session.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.